Welcome to A Meaningful Marketplace.
I'm Sarah Masoni from Oregon State University's Food Innovation Center, where I've helped countless dreamers launch their new food products. It's the science of taking a food delight from the kitchen to mass manufacturing and still keeping its great taste. That's what I do. I've been called the woman with the $1 million palate, although I haven't tried to cash that check yet. Listen in weekly for real-life stories.
I'm Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce and author of Preservation Pantry, modern canning from root to top and stem to core. I love inspiring business owners to get started on their journey, encourage folks to be part of their local community, and I'm excited to help business owners tell their stories. Hello and welcome to the Meaningful Marketplace. We are here weekly to discuss the journeys of food entrepreneurs. We are glad you've joined us today as we bring you stories of hope and inspiration. This is Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce. Sarah Masoni is at the Oregon Business Association meeting, but she will be back next week. So we have been partnering with the Regional Food Business Center from our 6-state region. We're currently meeting with business owners from the great state of Washington. So my co-host today will be Emily from WSU. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm super good. I was just driving through the state, probably waving at you on my way. I was up in Washington this week, in Seattle at a holiday sale doing the Finney Ridge Neighborhood Association. And the rad part about that was that I got to see some of our past guests, as you and I have interviewed from Seattle. Can you guess who I ran into?
Did you run into Papa Tony's hot sauce?
I sure did. I saw Tony's mom work in the booth like we heard about on our past episode. She was there just a couple halls down from me. So that was really cool to see her. Anybody else? Any other guesses?
Axe and Ferments?
Yes, that was the other one.
I'm getting really good. I've started keeping an eye out in grocery stores, so I know where I can go back if I can't find them face to face at a holiday bazaar. So
yeah, it was very fun. I of course have met both of them before we interviewed on the podcast, but it was fun to see them afterwards and just, talk about being on the show and then be in the same place together. It was just really fun. I love the way that this podcast brings all of us makers together, especially in this situation. It was all of us hot sauce makers, which was really cool.
Yeah, that is fun. Yeah, I have it on my calendar to go to the Food Innovation Center holiday bazaar later this week. And I know Tony will be there. I don't think anybody else will be, but I'm excited to meet other folks that we could interview in the future.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be there. So you'll get to meet me in person. We've only really, done these podcasts in our ears, and now we'll get to see each other in real life.
Oh, perfect. Oh, good.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. Do you have any Washington State news for us today?
Yeah, we do have a couple of exciting things coming up. First off is the Cultivating Success Agricultural Entrepreneurship class that runs online January 21st through March 11th, and it's on Tuesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. There will be one in-person intensive day, but primarily that is an online opportunity. And it's an in-depth farm and food business planning course. Cultivating Success puts out some really wonderful courses, so definitely encourage listeners who have an existing farm-based business or are interested in a completely new enterprise to check out that course. And coming up in early February, we have the Eat Local First trade meeting up in Bellingham. We love our partners at Eat Local First, and we're really looking forward to this trade meeting where over 180 farmers, seafood harvesters, chefs, grocery buyers, food artisans, processors, and distributors will convene in Bellingham for one day to network and connect and enjoy an expo together and have the opportunity to have one-on-one producer and buyer consultations and a locally sourced lunch. So you can find those events on the Northwestern Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center event page.
Perfect. We'll make sure to tag them in the show notes too, so people can attend or keep them in mind for next time around. But it's nice that there's some options for people to do in person and online. We love that. And we want to encourage you to connect with your state by signing up for the Regional Food Business Center newsletter. It's a breeze to sign up. Just go to Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center.com, hit connect with us, and choose the button to receive newsletters. And we want to thank our sponsor for supporting the Meaningful Marketplace. Thank you for helping us spread the word about small business owners and entrepreneurs. Let's hear a word from our sponsor. The Northwest and Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center is the proud sponsor of the Meaningful Marketplace podcast, giving a voice to food from across the 6-state region of Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. The Food Business Center supports Northwest and Rocky Mountain food industry makers as part of the USDA's National Network of Food Business Centers, supporting a more resilient, diverse, and competitive food system as a go-to source for small and mid-tier food and farm businesses with a focus on underserved communities, providing education in the form of technical knowledge, business programs, and industry news. We sponsor trade shows, meetups, and conferences to connect growers, producers, retailers, distributors, and processors, all to stimulate business and raise the standards of our storied food industry. Join us as we travel through the 6-state region, learning more about food makers, food hubs, and food systems. Visit the website at Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional Food Businesses.com to get connected. And I have the pleasure of introducing our guests today. We have Eric and Christina from Muckleshoot Seafood Products in Seattle, Washington. We're delighted to have you both on the show. Welcome, you guys.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. We really like to connect our listeners to you as at the top of the show. So is there a good way for people to find you online, like on Instagram or Facebook or a website?
Christy, well, we're in development of some of those things right now.
Sure.
Christina, which is the best?
I think the best way is to call us on the phone.
Great. Old school. I love it.
It is.
Do you know the phone number offhand for that?
206-396-4870.
Perfect. That sounds great. And then can you describe to us what kind of seafood products it is that you are selling and how you get those?
Well, we'll start with, we're mainly a salmon harvester, and we produce a variety of vacuum packaged fillets and portions, mostly for wholesale. So what we're finding is that there's a lot of demand in our public schools and through some of the nonprofits that are doing supplying to food banks and some of the meal producer programs. So those packs are designed for those, although we will sell a 25-pound case of 4 to 6 ounce vacuum packed portions or a 30-pound case of 1 to 3 pound vacuum package size to pretty much anybody.
Perfect. And can you tell our listeners what you both do for the company?
I'm the assistant director at Muckleshoot Seafood Products, and I also do mostly the accounting, and I make sure that our fishers get paid for the fish that they catch.
That's an important role. Everybody needs to have somebody that pays them.
I think I'm well liked by the fishers for the most part, especially when they get their money.
I bet.
Yeah, she's more popular than I am. I oversee operations and then the company in general in conjunction with Christina's expertise as a CPA and her history as a Hoh tribal member that was raised in a tribal fishing community. My background has been seafood since the late 70s, and I came to work for the tribe 20 years ago. And Christina's been with the tribe now close to 16 years.
Coming up about 15 years so far.
Yeah. So we've got some history with the community, and we have a pretty good sized fleet. If I was be able to talk about some of the successes, Muckleshoot, the bolt decision is 50 years old this year. So when you talk about the usual and custom fishing areas of the 24 treaty tribes, including the coastal and the Columbia River, it's a long ways. And the Muckleshoot tribe has invested a lot of energy and a lot of money into improving the size of the salmon runs. And so there's so many really cool projects that our harvest management and our hatcheries and our scientists and the fisheries policy people have put together over the last 3 to 4 decades that has increased the size of our salmon run harvest substantially. And you don't hear a lot about that. You know, everybody hears about declining salmon runs. Ours are probably 3 times what they were 5 or 6 years ago.
And that is because that's such a big focus on with what you do, right? Is making sure that you're maintaining and making better rather than depleting the salmon.
Yeah. Christina can clarify more what 7 generations means. When I came to work for the tribe, they said they wanted to ensure that there was fishing opportunities for tribal members 100 years from now. That was 20 years ago. So 80 years from now, they want to make sure that there's fishing opportunities for tribal members, and the tribe has not withheld any effort in improving habitat, stream flows from the city of Tacoma, city of Seattle, in the watersheds where there has to be water in the streams when the fish are coming back. There's so much that goes into it, and some really cool projects in the works that are going to increase the salmon runs even more, which creates fishing opportunities for everybody from tribal, non-tribal, orcas, sea lions, you name it. Everybody benefits when there's more salmon coming back.
That's great. Emily, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'd love to hear some examples, like if there are some that you're comfortable sharing of some of those projects that have helped to increase the salmon runs so drastically.
The blast program is one where they figured out that Seattle Public Utilities rebuilt the hatchery on the Cedar River for sockeye, for Lake Washington sockeye. We haven't had a fishery there since 2006, but between cooperation with our fisheries department and State Department of Fisheries, we actually dip live sockeye at the Ballard Locks, put them in aerated tanks, and drive them up to Landsberg, where the hatchery is on the upper Cedar River, and put those fish into circular tanks that the tribe has provided. And the fish are a lot happier in a circular tank than in one of your traditional raceways. They kind of mope in a traditional rectangular raceway. And that's been going on, I think, for 3 years now, and the survival is incredible. So we figured out a way to circumvent the lake with its warm water, its low oxygen, its predation, and try and rebuild the Lake Washington sockeye run. And that's just one example. Another example is a hatchery on the upper Green River, where surplus eggs are made into food, or ikura, salmon caviar, from the hatcheries. And for over a decade now, we've been taking eggs from the Sioux Creek hatchery and spawning them there, bringing them to our hatchery to a certain size. Then they go and they're acclimated at this new hatchery it's a refurbished hatchery on the upper Green River. And those king's salmon that are released, a share of those are designated for the orcas. So it's not all about just harvesting the fish and producing the fish, and there's so much more to it. That's just a couple of examples of the innovative projects that our harvest management and our policy has been putting together. I always like to talk about the really cool things before we talk about, catching and selling fish.
Yeah, it's a good lead up and introduction because it makes people relate to it. I was just up at the Seattle Aquarium, and there was a new exhibit that had some information about the Muckleshoot Tribe. And I know that that's a good place for people to go. Are there other places that people can go to get more information about the tribe in case they're curious about it?
The tribe's website is a good one. I think that the aquarium's a good one because that's right there in the Salmon Highway that goes right in front of the waterfront, and then up the Duwamish and the Green Rivers, which is part of the central part of the Muckleshoot Tribe's UNA, or usual and accustomed fishing areas.
I think the website is really a wealth of information. They have language pages where you can actually learn some of the language, how to do greetings, and how to participate in some of the language as it pertains to culture. It's really important part of Native history, because with the Indian boarding schools and everything, that's sort of created an erasure of culture and not allowing the language to pass from generation to generation. So this language revival has been imperative for all Native cultures all over the United States. And Muckleshoot's done a really great job at getting that out and putting language back in the schools, in the community, on their website as well. They also have several videos in there about salmon and what Muckleshoot has done. They have several representatives from Muckleshoot, some elders, some of our policymakers for fisheries, and they're really just fascinating to learn the history. They talk a little bit about the fish wars that happened. A lot of people aren't familiar that there was actual war here in Washington State with the natives against people that were trying to infringe on the fishing rights. So yeah, the website, absolutely, they have all of those in YouTube videos. It's pretty fascinating if you have time to check it out. It's muckleshoot.nsn.us.
Perfect. Thank you for that web address, and we'll tag it in the show notes so people can find it really easy. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about harvest and products. We'll be right back.
Oregon State University's College of Agricultural Sciences and the Food Innovation Center are proud sponsors of Meaningful Marketplace. With a mission to serve all Oregonians, we are committed to giving voice to those whose food and agricultural stories are not always heard. By providing access and opportunity for a more diverse and just food system, because food brings people together.
Welcome back. We're still here with Eric and Christina from Muckleshoot Seafood Products, and we're going to talk now about the harvesting and processing of the salmon.
We'll start with the fishers. When I first started, the pay to the fishers was very low. And after we started, we realized that there was room for better dock prices to our fishers if the tribe started their own seafood company. So they did in 2002. I came in 2004, and we kind of rearranged the organization to where we were responsible for enforcing a quality standard. And we have a bleeding and icing standard. So all our boats go out where our fishers bleed their fish, which produces a better quality fish. All our boats have to carry ice. And that's our standard, is that the fish have to be bled and iced on board. So it creates a better quality fish. And then we saw the numbers of fishers grow. And as the tribal members got more excited about the company being in place to provide the services so they could be successful fishing, we saw grandchildren and children and great grandparents fishing together. And some of my best memories over the last years is when you see all the generations on one boat coming in after a harvest. I don't know how you would describe that as a tradition or culture, but that part is really important. A lot of the fishers, you can see that they're living the life that they should, the life of dignity, by being able to practice an age-old craft of fishing. That's probably one of the most important parts of what we do. And then as far as the harvest goes, all of our fish are counted and they are weighed, and they go on to the TEF system, which is part of the Northwest Indian Fish Commission's electronic fish ticket program, which Christina can talk more about the data collection. But then that fish goes to a production facility, which is very close to us, and it is a federally approved production facility that we have a home at for all of the fish that we process. And once it goes there, we make the determination, depending on species and market and timing, whether that fish is going to be sold in a fresh state or whether it's going to be gone to the line to be produced into a value-added item that one of our customers, or hopefully future customers, would be happy to buy. So that kind of completes that cycle from fishing to production to availability to customers.
And are the value-added products, when you say that, do you mean like smoked or canned or frozen? Is that the...
Fillets, portions, and frozen at this point, but not smoked at this time.
Okay.
Or canned.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure. I mean, we've had a couple of fish people that have specialized in fishing boats. Sometimes it's just one person who has a boat and then sells it, and so they take it to like a cannery. So I didn't know if that was what was happening, but you are portioning it out and then mostly wholesaling it. And so you said examples that you wholesale it to is schools. Are there specific schools that your product goes to?
Well, we started with OSPI. Christina worked on that diligently to where they had made a request for food. Christina, was that specifically from native producers or underserved communities, that large grant where we got introduced to OSPI?
The grant was targeted for small producers, whether it be fruits, vegetable, any type of ag. So we were one of the people that had fish, and then we responded, so they accepted it. So originally our fish ended up in one warehouse on our side of the mountains in Seattle and one in the east side of the mountains, the Spokane area. So our fish has been over to schools in Spokane School District, Southern Washington. I know it ended up in Walla Walla. And now we have several districts here in the local Seattle area that are purchasing directly, not necessarily going through the OSPI, but they were able to sample some of our fish, get some cases of our fish for their students. They were able to enjoy it. It's pretty interesting too, because the schools are tying the Muckleshoot culture back into the curriculum. So some of the students will actually get coloring pages and learn some of the Muckleshoot words for the coho or silvers that they're eating. So it's been a really exciting time, I think, for the state as well, because they're bringing that culture into the state that we've missed a lot historically, where it hasn't been much about natives or the people who are original people of the land. And now they're explaining that to kids so they can actually make that correlation. Natives from here weren't in teepees, they were in longhouses. So kind of giving more knowledge to the kids and tying that back to culture.
That's great that that full circle is able to be made, because part of what I was reading on the website was that the values are not only giving back, but bringing back and encouraging information to the next generation. So being able to have that food be in the schools is a really wonderful tie-in.
And
Yeah, we think so. We very much think so. And having aligned ourselves with a production facility that has all the certifications required as far as food safety goes, and the confidence that the process is all being done under good manufacturing practices and HACCP and all of the things that are required for, if you're going to have your children going to school and eating the food, then you want to make sure that it came out of facilities that are the best. And we really are working with some of the best producers in the Seattle area. And it's very limited. The number of seafood production houses left on the Washington coast or in the Oregon coast are getting fewer and fewer every year. We're blessed to be aligned with a good one.
Emily, did you have something else you wanted to ask?
Well, I was just going to make a comment on how I would have learned a whole lot better if we were tying our school lunches into our educational material. So I'm so glad to hear that that's happening now in Washington. But I'm curious with the emphasis as we work with producers across the state of Washington. The key is so heavily on having those correct certifications and food safety standards for getting into schools. Did you find that thinking about school certifications and what it would look like to sell into school districts as the production facility was coming together was what made this possible for you? Or did, once the schools became an eligible customer, did you have to think about how your production facility reflected those standards and make adjustments?
Of course, the tribe's been at this since 2002, and the relationship we have with the production facility, the owners of the production facility, it's a large packing house that does several different seafood items qualified to ship around the world. It kind of just piggybacked in that we were already working with a facility that not only has the USDA and the FDA certifications, but they also have third-party audits that allow them to sell to some of the major retailers that require that. Again, it's not because we're geniuses that we figured out that we need that. It's that there's a very small window of production in the Seattle area, and this company, this family that owns the production facility, realized that there was a need to have all those certifications in order to bring business to their house.
Have you gotten to hear feedback from any of the students who have had the opportunity to enjoy Muckleshoot seafood products salmon in their school lunches?
We've had feedback from some of the chefs. So we haven't actually got to talk specifically to the students, but I remember one of the chefs, he had never had salmon on his menu at all. I want to say they only had fish sticks every once in a while. So he really wasn't sure how it was going to perform, but he said all the kids tried it and they really liked it. It was really interesting too, because the menu that they were serving on that particular day at that school, all the food was completely sourced from Washington State. So to see that on a platter, it's not just awesome for us fish producers, it's awesome for all the berries that showed up and all the other people that contributed to that for those students. But that's the other feedback I had. They've made it into different things like salmon cakes. That's what they did over in the Spokane School District, and apparently the kids loved it too. So it's giving them exposure to a protein that maybe they wouldn't have normally, and they seem to enjoy it a lot too. So we've been grateful that they've been able to try it, and there's the culture tie-in, and they're getting healthy local food that has a low carbon footprint.
Did the chefs work with the tribes to design those menu items?
From what I understand, it was a little bit of a challenge initially to get everything set up, because a lot of kitchens aren't made to cook a raw fish. So they first had to sort of rework some of the kitchens that they have to where it was not just a reheating process, but an actual cooking process. So I want to say they assisted with some of the districts to make that happen. For us, we traditionally didn't have a lot of herbs and spices here locally. So if you were to have just the traditional salmon, it might have been cooked by the fire, and that probably wouldn't be realistic for a school. But other than that, we didn't have a lot of herbs and spices. I know sometimes, especially if you're not a salmon eater, maybe it helps to have a little bit of lemon on it to help you acclimate. It doesn't have a strong flavor or anything. It's just if you've never had it before, it'd be different. So we wouldn't normally have, lemon trees growing here wild in Washington. So, but no, not to my knowledge. But if there was a good recipe for them, we probably wouldn't mind supplying it. But you have to remember too, like it's different when you're in that cafeteria setting and you have to feed several hundred students in a short period of time.
Seattle School District was one of the first ones to buy. I think they bought about 3,000 pounds for an end of the year, and they did a salmon fettuccine. And then Christina mentioned the fish cakes or the salmon patties. But we were getting pictures from OSPI from some of the dishes. One of them was a sriracha salmon. They all look great. We're kind of proud of that.
Yeah, that sounds really good. The recipes that you both have talked about are way better than anything that I had in my school cafeteria when I was young. I do remember when they would make fish sticks, and they definitely were not, that fish was not coming from anywhere near our area, and everything was frozen. So I think these are like vast improvements for our next generation of children. So I love that they're being able to have local salmon from Muckleshoot. Yeah. That's so wonderful.
And some of the other work that we've been doing was we designed a 4 to 6 ounce individual vac pack 25-pound case that Food Lifeline is working with, and they've had good success with that. We also do a 30-pound vacuum package chum salmon side that has gone with like Northwest Harvest, and then Operation Sack Lunch is a meal provider in Seattle. You're probably familiar with them. They've been one of our original customers looking for salmon fillets to serve their dinners with. It's really exciting when you see the fish that was caught right here in Seattle, pretty much in the Seattle city limits, going to folks that would normally not get to eat salmon.
And for our listeners who are wanting to try products from Muckleshoot, but they're not part of the school system or any of those programs that you mentioned, is there a way for them to do it or for them to support Muckleshoot seafood products?
Sure. Call us. Yeah, we're in Seattle. We're pretty close to everything. And that if somebody wants to stop by and buy a case, they can. We don't limit to who we can sell to.
Oh, that's
or
great.
Who we will sell to.
Yeah, and so if they were going to buy it, would they get it frozen? Is that how it is? They would order it frozen and come pick it up.
Yeah. And during the season, sometimes fresh opportunities are there. If somebody wanted to buy a 30-pound case of king salmon fillets or coho salmon fillets fresh, it takes a little coordination. But our division's fairly small. I think we have 4 full-time employees, and our harvest is fairly big. So we get a little busy during the season.
Yeah, that's great to know, though, that individuals can come pick it up, because I bet you will be getting some calls from people to come get it.
We like that.
Yeah, that's what we want to have happen. So all of you out there, if you need a fresh salmon, call them up. And we always like to ask how your community, because now that we are all connected, how we can support you best, how we can support the tribe best. What are ways that we can be here for all of you?
I think mostly it's just understanding the history and learning about who the Muckleshoot people are, what their history was, the belief system. And I think that's a really big point. I think a lot of it is being visible. And I believe the Muckleshoot people, as well as a lot of other tribes, have sort of experienced this thing where we just haven't been visible to people, and just like recognizing that there is a tribe there, and there's people that care about the land and that have been here since time immemorial. Just learning about it, because I know for me, when I was growing up, I grew up here in Washington as well, and we didn't learn anything in school about the fish wars, or we didn't learn about the Muckleshoot people being the first people in the Seattle area. I mean, just learning about it, I think that's one of the best ways to help out. I know for us, we also sell the fish. We buy the fish from fishers, but if you were to come to First Avenue on one of our King's nights, you can actually buy a fresh fish from a tribal fisher off the dock. You wouldn't even go through us, so I'm kind of playing our fishers a little bit here. But you can actually buy directly from them as well. And it's a really cool time. It's a night where the whole community comes together. We have elders not only on the boats, but they'll be on the docks just watching. We'll sometimes have people swing by from the local community and just buy a fish straight from a fisher. It reminds me when I was young and I used to go with my grandma to one of the fish places close by. We would literally just go to the river and she would find her favorite fisher and see what they had. So it kind of reminds me of sort of an older trade method. And yeah, like I said, it's a lot of visibility, just like knowing and acknowledging the people that have been here for a long time. And if that fails,
Yeah.
if all else fails, they have a new casino resort. I haven't stayed at one of the hotels yet, but I know it's pretty close to like Crystal Mountain, and it seems like that'd be a cool place to stay. I haven't gone into a room, but I've seen some of the pictures. They look pretty nice.
And we'll make sure to tag those things in case people are interested in going and supporting and finding out more. That sounds really cool. And you said it was called First Avenue Kings Night. Is that right?
In August, there is 1 or 2 12-hour openings for Chinook, and the whole community comes out. It's the largest night of fishing that we have. We'll have more boats come out for that 12-hour fishery for Chinook because it's the highest value fish for us, but it's also people are fish hungry because it's been a long time. We usually stop fishing for chum salmon around Thanksgiving. So from Thanksgiving until August, we don't have commercial fisheries. We have some scientific test fisheries that going on, but the 12-hour openings on the nights in August are one that brings everybody out. And it's really nice, after being there for almost 21 years, it's nice to see some of the elders that were fishing when I first started come down just to hang out on the dock with their families, because the fishery runs it from 8 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's usually warm and nice. And anyway, it's a real sense of community.
That sounds really lovely. And I have never heard about it. So thank you for sharing that information with me. It sounds really great. And we'll make sure that our listeners know about it too. And we'll tag everything in there. Emily, do you have any final questions before we wrap up today?
My final question is, if somebody wants to get their hands on some of this salmon sooner rather than later, but doesn't really know how to cook salmon, do you sell to any Seattle area restaurants or restaurants in the Pacific Northwest region?
That's a really good question. None specifically that I can bring up today. Of course, during the fresh season, as our fish is going out across the country, some of it does land in Seattle, where some of the local distributors would be cutting and distributing to the local restaurants. But you put me on the spot. I don't have a specific restaurant that would be buying our frozen fillets right now, but you could see where it would be a Muckleshoot branded fillet.
And it's a good incentive for all of us listening who might not be confident fish chefs to get our act together and learn a little bit. So thank you.
And any final thoughts that either one of you want to share with our listeners before we go?
No, it's just great that we're seeing such local support. We've got a very small footprint. If you're talking about landing fish in Georgetown and driving them up to Interbay, or taking a tender boat to Interbay to have them unloaded and processed, it doesn't get much smaller than that. I think it's about 7 miles where the majority of our fish gets landed and processed. And it can be tens of thousands of pounds as the runs get healthier. So we would like to continue sharing our fish with different school districts and in meals programs and food banks and the like. It's a part of just sharing the fish, sharing the food.
Well, thank you both for taking the time to tell us about everything today and hearing about the salmon and the importance of the next generation and giving back to the kids in the community. I think those are all things that we value. And, we have the show, The Meaningful Marketplace, because we want to highlight people that are doing meaningful things. So we're very thankful that you came on the show to talk to us today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. Thank you for listening to The Meaningful Marketplace. Before you go, you can show us some love by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. You can follow us on Instagram at Meaningful Marketplace. And if you want to call or text us with any questions, 503-395-8858, and we will answer you back. And we couldn't do this without our team at Joya Production House. Thank you to Kayleen, our production coordinator, and Haley, our audio engineer. And we will be back next week, everybody. Bye.